This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. We have a very interesting topic this morning. Usually we've been doing a topic relevant to the Parsha or to the time of the year. And now we're going to do something that is not relevant to either. Something more relevant to the news. And not the most recent news, but within the last year there were major negotiations. And this is a constant issue, especially in the state of Israel, where Nebuch, sometimes they take Israeli prisoners, Israeli hostages, and they capture Israeli soldiers, and in exchange they want the state to release, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds, sometimes even over 1,000, 1,027 to be precise, right, to release terrorists in exchange for an Israeli hostage. So the question that we would like to deal with this morning is whether this is permitted. How's it doing?
Good.
That's good?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the question. We're going to talk about the Mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuin, redeeming captives, and exactly what the parameters of the Mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuin. Okay. 2 sheets. Okay. So again, the Rambam tells us about the importance of the Mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuin. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Matnas Aniyim. This is basically the Rambam's Hilchos Tzedakah. The Rambam tells us in Parak Ches, Pidyon Shivuin koidim leparnasas aniyim ulechasoisan. In terms of the mitzvah of redeeming captives, this is considered a very, very important mitzvah. Redeeming captives comes even before supporting the poor, covering the poor. You have even poor people, they can't even afford clothing. It's more important to redeem a Jewish captive than even to clothe an ani. Ve'ein lecha mitzvah gedola kepidyon shvuyim. There is no greater mitzvah in the Torah than redeeming captives. Shehashavoy, because of someone who's captured. Hareu b'chlal haraevim. Yeah, poor guy, sometimes he's hungry, sometimes he's thirsty, sometimes he doesn't have clothing, sometimes he's this, sometimes that. Someone who's captured, he's included in those who are hungry. V'hatzmeim, those who are thirsty. Ho'arumim, those who don't have clothing. V'oimed b'sakanas nefashos, his life is in danger. And somebody who neglects, someone who neglects a captured individual, amalam einav mi pidyoinoi, one who hides his eye from redeeming a captive, harezeh oiver aloi sa'ametz esuvavcha. He violates lav number 1, don't harden your heart. Lav number 2, v'loi sikpoitz es yadcha, don't close your hand. Lav number 3, v'aloi samoid al dam reyecha, don't stand idly by when your friend's blood is on the line. Lav number 4, v'aloi yerdenim b'perchlei necha, don't allow your brother to be enslaved. Ubitel mitzvahs poisech tiftachas yadcha loi. He's violating the mitzvah d'oraisa that you have to open up your hand to the poor. The mitzvah of giving life to your brother. And the mitzvah yahavta l'recha kamoicha. And another mitzvah. V'hatzel likuchim lamaves. Anybody know what mitzvah that is? That's in a sefer called Sefer Mishlei. Highly recommended sefer. I don't know if they have any haskamas on it, but it's nevertheless highly recommended. V'harbe dvarim ka'elu. And many other such lavin and mitzvahs say, ve'ein lecha mitzvah rabba kepidyon shvuyim. There's no greater mitzvah than redeeming captives. Okay?
What's the hasla kuchel movish? What is that?
It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Save people from death.
From death.
Okay.
It doesn't mention about saving him from mission.
Okay, and certainly if there's a no, it's not mentioned. But certainly if there's in the times of the Gemara, in the times of the Rambam, if that applied, then certainly that would be another consideration, another reason why it would be a tremendous mitzvah to redeem a captive. And looking at the language of the Rambam, one would think that this is such a great mitzvah, there would be no restrictions on how far one would have to go to be able to redeem a captive. And yet, the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us in Masechta Gittin, that the Chachamim made a takana, that there's a limitation how far we go to redeem captives. The Mishnah says in Masechta Gittin, Ein Pidyon es hashvuyin yeser al kadei demeyan. We do not redeem captives more than their value. Mipnei tikkun ha'olam, in order for society to continue. Okay, that's what the Mishnah says.
What is demeyan?
What?
How much is doing?
Okay, we'll have to see what that means. But the Mishnah is saying there's a takana. There's a takana, Medina, the Mishnah. We are not allowed to redeem captives more than their value. So if the Goyim, they capture some, they kidnap some, they're charging an exorbitant ransom, we are not permitted to pay more than their value. Mipnei tikkun ha'olam. Now what that means more than their value, how do we evaluate it based on how much individual is worth on the slave market? Or does it mean based on, right, on the slave market, every age, every gender has a different value? Or do we evaluate it based on a person's social standing and financial status? That's a question in the Rishonim. But certainly, when the Goyim charge an exorbitant fee, they want $1 million, they want $10 million, we're halachically not permitted to pay that amount of money, mipnei tikkun ha'olam, in order for society to continue. Now, what does that mean, mipnei tikkun ha'olam? Look at the Gemara. Ibaylahu, in the yeshiva they had the following question. Hi mibnei tikkun ha'olam. What does this mean, mibnei tikkun ha'olam? One possibility is mishum tuchka d'tzibura. You're going to cause undue hardship to the community. Right? Rashi says, what does it mean, mibnei tuchka d'tzibura? Ein lanu lidchay katzibur. We can't pressure the tzibur. We can't impose on the tzibur. V'lahaviyoi lidei aniyos b'shvel elo, and to bring the community to poverty. What are we going to do? Every time there's a captive, we're gonna send out an envelope in the mail to every single person that they're required to spend. Everyone in the community has to give $1,000 because this guy's kidnapped. You're gonna cause everyone's gonna become aniyim. Everyone's gonna become poor. Every time the guy they won raise billions of dollars. So we're gonna put this undue hardship on the community to free every captive. It's hard enough they have to pay their tuition and their rent and their electricity and membership and all the other many types of financial responsibilities that people have, and to add on top of it, we're going to have to start redeeming captives when the Goyim want to take us. No, the Chachamim said, in order for society to continue, we got to put a cap, we got to put a limit. They charge his value, you got to pay. They charge more than the value. The Chachamim say, don't do it.
So this is only a question of money.
In terms of who is considered Shivuin, let's say somebody goes to jail and he did something wrong.
Okay, so we'll have to see. No, if a Jew does an Avera and he goes to jail, it's his fault. His fault.
But according to Jewish law, you wouldn't have...
Okay, that's beyond, we're not going to get involved exactly how to define who's considered captured. But in general, if a Jew commits a real crime, and even
though the system, the Jewish law would not have put him in jail.
Look, if the judicial system is being unjust to him, and they're being anti-Semitic, that's a different story. But if somebody commits a real crime, whatever it is, they have to follow the law. We abide by the law of our country. But
do you have to try to take him out?
no, not if he committed a crime.
Not illegally.
No. No. No.
I'm so sorry, as Shiur is about the prisoners, there's a doctor who's in jail for the past 20 years, and tomorrow he's going in front of the appeal that possession.
Look, if the...
His name is Eliyahu Ben Sar. We should tell him they should be...
If the judicial system is being unjust to someone, that's Pidyon Shivuin. But if somebody commits a crime, they have to abide by the law. Okay. That's one potential explanation for this concept of Mibnei Tikkun HaOlam, that we don't want to put undue financial hardship on the community. Says the Gemara, Oy Dilma, or maybe there's another possible reason why we don't free captives more than their value. Mishum Delay Lagarbu Velaisu Tzvei, so that they don't seize and bring more captives, right? If every time the Goyim say, if you want this rabbi back, you got to pay $1 million, and we're going to pay the $1 million. What do you think they're going to do tomorrow? They're going to take the next rabbi. You take the next guy. The more, if we pay their value, so how much are they making already? That's not worth it for them to go through the ordeal of kidnapping. But if they're going to charge an exorbitant sum, right, and we're going to pay it, that is just promoting more kidnapping.
What if the Balabat didn't want to pay it? You had in TWA a number of years ago, when they hijacked that plane, they had the Rosh Hashiva from
Of Hutner.
Nobody knows but they got an amount of money for that.
Not all the Gedalim said they should have paid it, by the way.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Okay. Okay, one second. No, there's a fact.
No,
What?
no, the government
Okay.
said you shouldn't do it either.
And so we're not going to discuss specific instances of what's permitted, what's not. We're talking in the generalities. Again, the Gemara, the Mishnah says a takana, we're not allowed to redeem captives more than their value. And the Gemara says, is it because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur? Now, in that case, what if the tzibur gets up and says, we're multi-billionaires, we don't mind paying every time? Perhaps the tzibur they're allowed to be moichel on their hardship. In other words, if the reason why we're not allowed to redeem captives more than their value is because we're putting undue hardship on the tzibur, if the tzibur says we don't mind, perhaps they could be mochel and they can pay. If it's because we don't want to incite the goyim to continue to kidnap, then doesn't matter who is paying the money, doesn't matter why they want to pay the money, we cannot redeem captives more than their value.
The case in Israel was different. They didn't ask for money. They asked for releasing people. So it's not money. And also, if they ask for money, the government of Israel would give the money, not anybody of us. So the government.
Okay. You're right. Right now we're starting from the Yesodos. Okay. So right now the Gemara is saying we're talking about money. Now, how much is one hostage worth? Right, even in terms of people. One hostage is worth one terrorist. I mean, what's worth 1,027? It's talking about in the normal market. It's not in Medina Shemayim. Medina Shemayim, you put Moshe Rabbeinu al kaf achas, and you put Kol Yisrael b'kaf hasheni, he shakol keneged kulam. But here the point is, we're putting undue hardship on the tzibor, or we don't want to incite them to grab more. So if every time we free an Israeli hostage, we have to release thousands of terrorists, so that's just gonna promote more kidnapping. Okay. But we're not discussing yet a soul for a soul. Right now we're talking about money. So is it because of duchga de tzibura, or is it because so that they don't continue to do that? Let's see Rashi on the third line in number 3. Ay dilma, or maybe the reason we're now to redeem captives more than their value is so that the goyim do not extend themselves and try to grab more. Because they could get a good deal. They could make a lot of money. Rabbi say, what's the nafkamina? What the reason is? Is it because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur? Or is it because we don't want to incite them, we don't want to promote more? The answer is if you have a rich uncle, that's the nafkamina. If you have a wealthy uncle, if the reason is because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur, here the tzibur is not paying. It's the wealthy uncle who's going to redeem. So then it would be permitted. But if it's because we don't want to promote more kidnapping, I don't care if it's the rich uncle, the rich father-in-law, the rich mother-in-law, the cousin, it doesn't matter. No, we do not allow anybody to pay more money to redeem a captive because we don't want them to do it again. That would be a nafkamina. That's what Rashi says. The nafkamina, im yesh av ashir. The nafkamina would be if you have a rich father, a karov, or a rich relative, that would agree to pay a lot of money, and the burden will not fall on the tzibur. So if it's we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur, in a case where you have a rich relative, we're not putting undue hardship on the tzibur. But if it's we don't want to promote them to do it again, so it doesn't matter who's paying the money. Okay. Let's see the Gemara. What's the conclusion? Halacha l'maisa. What's the reason why we're now to redeem captives for more than their value? Says the Gemara, Tashma, back to number 2. The Levi bar Darga parka lebarte betleisar alfi dinare zav. Levi bar Darga redeemed his daughter for 13,000 gold coins. So what does that show?
The rich uncle.
That the reason why you're now to redeem a captive is not because we don't want to promote more, it's because we don't want to put an undue hardship on the tzibur. And that's why Levi bar Darga was permitted to redeem his daughter for so much money. Rabbi said, no, there's no proof. Just because Levi bar Darga did it, it doesn't mean he did the right thing. Maybe the Chachamim were not pleased with what he did. Maybe really the reason why we're now to redeem captives for too much money is because we don't want to promote more kidnapping. So why did Levi bar Darga redeem his daughter for so much money? Because he wanted to, and he didn't ask the Rabbanim. And if he would have asked, they would have said, you can't do it. That's the Gemara's conclusion. Oman leim alan The Baratzin Chachamim Avad. Who said he did the right thing? He did it with the consent of Chachamim. The Mishlei Ratzin Chachamim Avad. So the Gemara has a shaila. What the reason why we're not to redeem captives, and what is the conclusion? No conclusion. It's a question that has not been resolved. The Ran concludes, this is Ibai Delay Ifshita. The Rush concludes, it's Ibai Delay Ifshita, which means the Gemara does not give a definitive conclusion as to why the halacha is we don't redeem captives for more than their value. Okay?
Is this an official takana that Chazal made?
Yeah.
When was this made?
If I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Gemara in Gittin and Hashalech, and then in Hanizakin brings down various things that were enacted when they tikkun ha'olam. The Gemara brings down the concept of a prudbul as when they tikkun ha'olam, and the Gemara brings down certain types of collections are from either Idjis, Beinin, and Siboris when they tikkun ha'olam. These are one of the takanas when they tikkun ha'olam. Okay. Now we come to another Gemara in Gittin, which throws everything for a loop. This is a Gemara that many people may be familiar with. This is one of the Gemaras that we learn on Tisha B'Av in Hanizakin. One of the few Gemaras you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av. Tana Rabbana, look at number 4. Ma'isa Rabbi Shua ben Chananya shahalach lekrach gadol shabaraymi. There's a story. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya went to a big city in Rome. Amru Lai, and they said to him, Tinok echad yesh b'beis ha'asurim. There's a kid in the jail here. Yefei einayim, beautiful eyes. V'toiv roi, very, very handsome. Ukitzoisav seduris lai taltalim. He had very attractive payas. Right? His curls were very beautiful. Right? Halach v'yaman al pesach beis ha'asurim. So Rabbi Shua ben Chananya stood by the entrance of the jail, and he said the following. He said, Amar, he said, Minasan l'meshisa Yaakov Yisrael l'boizizim. He said, who gave the Jewish people over to be trampled and plundered? He said the first part of the pasuk. Ana oisaitinok v'amar. The little child responded, Halai Hashem zu. It was Hashem. Chatanulai, we sinned to him. V'lo yava b'drachav halayich, we didn't want to walk in his ways. V'lo shamu b'tayrasai, we did not listen to his Torah. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya was flabbergasted that a little child would be able just to finish off the pasuk like that. Amar, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya said, this kid has a future. Amar, muftuchani b'ay shamayra hayrabi Yisrael. I can say as a guarantee, take it to the bank, this kid one day is going to be a paisek. You know, this guy's going places. Ho'avoida, I take an oath, she'eni zaz mikan, I am not moving from here, ad she'eftenu b'chal mamayin she'poiskin olav, until I redeem him for all the money in the world. Amru, they said, lo zaz misham she'padim maman harbe. He did not move until he was able to redeem for a lot of money. V'lo hayu yamim mu'atim, and it did not take a lot of time. At Shahira Harabi, so until this kid became a big paisek, and who was he? Umanu Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Like the Gemara says, right? The Gemara says in Brachas that Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So this was the kid that Rabbi Shua ben Chananya redeemed, right? For a Kohen Gadol, right? For a lot of money. For a lot of money. So what's the problem here?
You tell me what you can get the Chacham.
You're going to get someone else. He gave the money by himself. He didn't ask for.
The question is, the Mishnah told us we're not allowed to redeem captives for more than their value. So what right did Rabbi Shua ben Chananya have to go redeem this captive? Because he likes his curls? Because he thinks he's going to be the next Gadol Hadar? Who cares? We have a takana. Takana is takana. We don't make exceptions. Either we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibor, or we don't want to promote more kidnapping. So if that's the case, what right did Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya have to redeem this kid? Okay, who asked this question? Tosfos and Masechta Gittin asked this question on Daf Mem Hey. Look at number 5. Tosfos and Masechta Gittin asks, if the Mishnah says Ein Pidyon es Hashuim Yeser Mikdei Demeyan, how is Rabbi Shua ben Chananya allowed to redeem this kid? Says Tosfos in number 5, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya de Parki Lahu Tinok. So we would have answered what? He took it out of his own account. He didn't go around collecting. He was a rich guy, or he had money. He wanted to give it. But Taisus doesn't give that answer. Maybe he would. The simple meaning of the Gemara is he did. He went around collecting and he put the collection on the tzibur.
He said the Maisa before, where he said that Shlekar Rosh Kachom also. Could be also there, you know.
Oh no, so Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya, he was one of the Chacham. We're not going to say he did it Shalai Baratz and Chal. Levi Bar Darga, we don't know who he is. We don't know him. So maybe he did it Shalai Baratz and Chacham. Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya, he's one of the Asher Yerladata, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, right?
But so sometimes the Maisa with the Ram Rottenberg also.
Oh, so we'll have to get to that.
Just more kidnapping, though. If someone takes it out of his own pocket and gives it,
right, so that's part of the question. The Mishnah said we're not to do it. One of the reasons is because it's going to encourage more kidnapping. So how is he allowed to do it? So right now we may have to say that, but right, the question is we haven't seen such an exception before.
I'm sure probably in Rome there were probably maybe one or two other people in the same situation.
Probably. So, and therefore what? So you're saying you're not going to be promoting them to do more because they do it anyway?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, maybe that might...
Election as to who to rescue.
You can't rescue anyone.
But could it also have to do with how the person was kidnapped? Like it wasn't a policy, but maybe the kid was taken for some other reason. It wasn't going to be a precedent that would say.
So we have to see. Let's see what Tosfos says. So Tosfos asks in number 5. Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya, de parke lahu tinoik b'mamayin harbe b'hanizak. And Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya, who redeemed the child for a lot of money in Hanizakin, in the 5th parak. What's the answer? Lefi shahaya muflag b'chachma. It wasn't an ordinary Joe. This kid was going places. This kid was exceptional in chachma, like Daniel said, right? This kid was had a future. He could be a Gadol Hadar. For someone who could be the Gadol Hadar.
His father was Kohen Gadol.
And certainly, and later he was. And later he was, right?
Yeah, of course. This is the only reason.
So the only reason why, because he was Muflag B'Chacham. He was a Talmid Chacham.
Yichus, such a Yichus.
No, Yichus is not a reason.
The son of Kohen Gadol. And he's going to be Kohen Gadol.
Yichus...
Why not?
That place it doesn't say.
Take the
doesn't
cut it. Of Am Yisrael, more than that.
You need muflag b'chach. In other words, he was exceptional in wisdom. He's going to be a big Talmid Chacham. He's going to be a big Gadol b'Yisrael. That's a reason to break the law. It's an exception to the takana. Takana is in general, we can't redeem captives. But someone who is muflag b'chachma, one of the Gedolei Yisrael, cannot redeem them. So let's say if a soldier gets captured, they may be very important to our people, and they serve a very important cause. Nevertheless, we have not carved out an exception for them. This is a specific exception for one who is muflag b'chachma. Inami, another answer. B'shas churban habayis lo shayach t'loi ligravu. Says Tosfos. What's the reason why we're not to redeem captives for more than their value? Because we don't want to promote them to kidnap more hostages. Says Tosfos. At the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, by redeeming captives, you're not going to incite them to do it more. They're doing it anyway. That's what they're doing. They're destroying the Beis Hamikdash and they're just kidnapping people. So whether you redeem or you don't redeem, it's not going to cause them. It's not going to increase the likelihood.
Kidnapping everybody anyway.
They're kidnapping everyone, right? So
in World War II, when they rescued people from occupied Germany, this second reason that Tyson's would apply, because they were going to kill all the Jews anyway. So the fact that they paid money to rescue the Belzer Rebbe, the Safra Rebbe,
I'll tell you something. Unfortunately, they weren't asking too much money.
No.
They were not asking too much money back then. Maybe for certain individuals, but you could have paid very little per head. Very little per head.
Well, less
wouldn't apply to that situation.
They were under,
When you say more than the value, how much is the value?
Okay, so that's the Meiri says there's a discussion whether it's how much money the person would be sold for on the slave market, Or every person has a certain value based on their financial status and their stature and their what?
How much they can produce.
Right. Every person has a different value. Okay.
What does the word liberal mean?
To grab, to kidnap. Okay. So these are Tosfos' two answers, right? Number one, this kid was muflag b'chachma, he was exceptional in wisdom. And number two, at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, there's no concept, we don't want to incite them to do more because they're doing it anyway. Comes along Tosfos in Masechta Gittin, on Daf Nun Ches, and he gives another answer. Again, Tosfos on Mem Hey gives two answers. Either you could redeem a Talmid Chacham, or you could redeem at the time of Churban Beis HaMikdash. At the time where the Goyim are just going rampant and grabbing people, so by you paying extra money to redeem someone, you're not going to cause them to chap more people. Okay. Tosfos in Masechta Gittin Daf Nun Ches gives another answer. This is directly on the Gemara where Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya said that he's not moving from there until he redeems this kid for all the money in the world. Says Tosfos in number 6, Ki'ika sakanas nefashos Pidyon Shivuin Yaisra Kadei Demeyan. In a situation where someone's life is in danger, you could pay all the money in the world. Like we say in the 4th paragraph, by someone who sold himself and his sons to Goyim, certainly here, where this kid was captured by the Romans, and any day they could just take a sword and chop the kid's head off. Anytime someone's life is in danger, there's no such thing as paying too much. Every penny is worth it.
Everything is by
Every penny is worth it.
So why did he have to bring up the fact that he's a smart guy and brilliant kid? It shouldn't have mattered. He should have just said, I'll save him because his life is in danger.
Because maybe his life was not in danger.
Oh, maybe, okay. Maybe because...
He's asking good.
No, he's asking a good question. So what? Maybe because there were so many people captured, he couldn't redeem everyone. This was a way. This was used. That's the order of precedence. But nevertheless, the obligation to redeem is on everybody, and is specifically in a case where someone's life is endangered. And the halacha, when the Mishnah says "Ein poidinas hashvuin yasmi kadei demeyan," that's talking about a guy who's captured and he's sitting there in the prison, and he has a comfortable cell. And they give him nice slippers with fuzzy slippers, and they give him, popcorn to eat. But if somebody's life is in danger, if they have, two of these terrorists, wearing you can only see their eyes, standing there with the sword on his neck. You have two of these chayas standing there, and any second they could just slit the guy's throat. In that case, you have to pay all the money in the world. That is the first answer of Tosfos and Gittin Daf Nun Ches. Daf Mem Hey, Tosfos doesn't say a word about Sakanas Nefashos. The first time Tosfos asks the question, he doesn't say you're allowed to redeem a captive for more than the value when the person's life is on the line. All Tosfos says is, if the guy's smart, you could redeem him. Or at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, you could redeem him. Comes Tosfos on 13 blot later, and Tosfos discovers America. Tosfos comes up with a new heter, and the heter is, when your life is on the line, you're allowed to redeem a captive for more than the value. Yinami, or Mishum de Muflag B'chachma Haya.
Before.
What?
That's 10 verses before.
Right, or because the guy was an exceptional Talmid Chacham. So between the two Tosfos, Tosfos gives 4 answers, but it's only 3 answers really. Right? 2 in Daf Mem Hey and Daf Nun Ches, one of the answers repeats itself. Right? So on Daf Mem Hey, Tosfos answers, if somebody's exceptionally smart, you can redeem them for more than the value, which Tosfos repeats on Daf Nun Ches. Tosfos on Mem Hey also says, at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, you could redeem for more than their value. Tosfos on Nun Ches adds that when there is Sakanas Nefashos, you could pay more than the value. Okay? Now we have to see how we paskin. We have 2 Tosfos, so it would seem, Rabbi say, in a case where, let's say, an Israeli soldier was captured, it's definitely Sakanas Nefashos. Definitely Sakanas Nefashos. Now, even though the Rambam said that every captive is considered in a state of Sakanas Nefashos, there's Sakanas Nefashos and then there's Sakanas Nefashos. Every captive, the captors could potentially do whatever they want, but nevertheless, there's a certain normal protocol. They're not gonna, but in a case where you know they're starving the guy to death, or they're standing there with a gun or with a sword, that's sakanas nefashos mamish. Says Tosfos, at least on Daf Nun Ches, you have to pay all the money in the world. Do we paskin like this Tosfos? Any of them, right? Are there exceptions?
It's funny because by the Tosfos on Mem Hey says that he's smart first, and then says the Charabayas, and the one on Nun Ches, which is the case where the guy is smart, it says smart second. I would think the order should be first there.
Okay. Also, if you notice in Tosfos, what was Tosfos' second answer? On Daf Mem Hey. The second answer was, you know why you're allowed to redeem a captive for more than the value? Because at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, we don't have to be concerned of paying more than the value, that we're going to be promoting more kidnapping. Why? Because they're doing it anyway. Why does Tosfos say that the reason of Delay Ligravu doesn't apply? That's only one of the reasons of the Gemara. Didn't the Gemara give two reasons? The Gemara said one reason we're now to redeem captives for more than their value is why we don't want to promote more kidnapping. And another reason is because of duchga de tzibura. We don't want to place undue hardship on the tzibur. So it's true at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, by paying more than the value, you're not going to be promoting more kidnapping. But you are placing undue hardship on the tzibur. So what we have to see is which one of the reasons of the Gemara is going to stand lahalacha. Okay? Let's see the Rambam. The Rambam says in number 7, Ein Pidyon es hashvuyim b'yeser al dameim mibnei tikkun ha'olam. We do not redeem captives for more than their value for the sake of society. Why? Says the Rambam, although the Rush say that the question of the Gemara is Ibai Delay of Shita, it's a question that has not been resolved, says the Rambam, I will tell you the definitive reason why you can't pay more to redeem captives. Shalo yiyu ha'oivim roifim achreim l'shavotam. We don't want the enemy to run after Jews to capture them. In other words, the Rambam seems to be paskening halacha l'maisa, like which reason of the Gemara? Not because of duchga de tzibura, not because we're placing an undue hardship on the tzibur. The Rambam seems to be paskening like the reason of what? Delay legarvu. We don't want to promote more kidnapping. Right? Now, does the Rambam carve out any exception for Talmud Chacham? No. Does the Rambam carve out any exception for the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash? No. Does the Rambam carve out any exception where somebody's life is on the line? No. The Rambam paskins halacha l'maisa, if someone is in jail, even if their life is on the line, you cannot pay more than their value, bottom line. That's the opinion of the Rambam. Is that like Tosfos? No.
If they're going to be capturing people anyway, then the Rambam will be okay with that.
Who says?
Because the reason of the Rambam doesn't apply.
Okay, maybe.
What does the Rambam do with this Gemara?
If you have a few captives, are there any priorities who would get free before other? No, somebody has 6, 7 children. The other guy's a Talmud Chacham, he has no children. He's old. So who are you going to bail out? Who are you going to...
So the Mishnah, the last parak in Horayos, says Kayin, Kaidem Levi. Levi, Kaidem Yisrael. Yisrael, Talmud Chacham, Kaidem LeKayin Am Haaretz. Mamzer Talmud Chacham, Kaidem LeKayin Gadol Am Haaretz. Ish, Kaidem LeIsha. That's what the Mishnah says.
Nothing to do with children. He has children. Nope. Man has 7 or 8 children.
So when
should he get some consideration?
So how do you compare that to when do you have a mitzvah of Pidyon Shivuyim according to the Rambam?
When they ask the going rate.
When they ask for the going rate.
When they ask for the going rate. Okay.
What does the Rambam do with the Gemara then?
What did the Rambam do with the Gemara?
Yeah.
We don't know. Or maybe the Rambam would say like the second answer of Tosfos, that at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash it's different because they're going to be doing it anyway. We don't know. But the Rambam does not carve out any exceptions for Sakanas Nefashos. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. Ein Pidyon Hashvuyin Yosem Miknei Demeyan Mibnei Tikkun Ha'olam. And the Shulchan Aruch sides with the Rambam. shelo yiyu ha'ivim moisrim atzmam aleim l'shavosam, so that the enemy does not extend themselves to capture more. But, says the Shulchan Aruch, aval adam yachal liftois es atzmai, a person is allowed to redeem himself, b'chol ma'aseh yirtza, with whatever they ask, b'chein l'talmid chacham, says the Shulchan Aruch, a talmid chacham you can redeem, like Tosfos. Oh yeah, afilu eino talmid chacham, even if someone who's not a talmid chacham, elushu talmid charif, but right now he's a smart guy, v'efshar sheyeh adam gadol, and maybe one day he'll be a talmid chacham. Paidim ma'asam b'damim merubim, you can redeem him for a lot of money. But what if somebody's life is on the line? According to the Shulchan Aruch, can you redeem them? Big N-O. No, you can't. You can't. And in fact, they asked the Maram Milublin. Maram Milublin was born in 1558. One of the early Kadmonim. Very interesting. He studied under Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen Shapira, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Krakow. And the Kamat, in all the tshuvas of the Maram Milublin, when he signs his name, he signs Hachosim Choson Hamelech Hagoin Maharetz. He writes that he's the son-in-law of the great Goin Maharetz, Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen. Very interesting. At the age of 24, the Maram Milublin established the yeshiva. At 29, he became the Rosh Yeshiva and the Av Bezin of Krakow. At 37, he was already the Rav HaKollel of the entire region of Lvov. Very interesting. The Maram Milublin had many very, very all-time great Talmidim. The Shlah HaKadosh was a student of the Maram Milublin. The Megale Amukos was a student of the Maram Milublin. Rav Meir Katz, who was the father of the Shach, was a student of the Maram Milublin. Rav Yeshua Charif, Maginei Shlomo, was a student of the Maram Milublin. And the Baal Tvuah Shar. Okay. So, he's before the Marsha, I believe.
Who's before the Marsha? No, it's after the Marsha.
Maram Milublin, I'm not sure.
After the Marsha.
After the Marsha?
Yeah. A little bit after, not much after.
After. Okay, so Maram Milublin was posed with the following question. Let's take a look. In number 9, look on the 4th line. He says, Al Asher Nidrashti, I was asked the following question. Al Davar Hanar, there was a kid, Hanisbas Bidei Yishmaelim, he was captured by the Arabs. Shetanu Olav, they made up a story about the kid, Shenidbas Im HaZayna, he was fooling around with a Zayna, and the Arabs are very machmir about these type of inyanim, HaYishmaelim. V'roitzim Danim B'misa, they want to kill the kid. Ay Ba'aynas, Heimer Das, Chas V'sham, or they want to cause him to convert. So now we have that issue, right? They want to cause him to convert. Is the congregation obligated to redeem this kid for false charges, right? If the kid really sinned, so even the Afsar Nashik. But they made up a story, and the question is, are we responsible to get the kid off the hook? Says Maram Milublin, yeah, of course. But not if they charge a penny more than his value. Says Maram Milublin, Amnam, nearly Pasha. We are not obligated to redeem him more than the value. And I don't know why anyone would dream in his wildest imagination why you would have to pay more than his value. Why is this guy different than any other captive? I understand if Talmid Chacham, Shulchan Aruch has carved out an exception. But this kid, we love him, we'll pay for him, but not more than his value. Kimavor b'paiskim. Dehahacha shaychi ta'amim detrei shnuyim de Gemara. Says Maram Milublin, the 2 answers of the Gemara apply here. Kaima deduchka de tzibura. Number 1, if we're going to start making a collection to redeem this kid, we're going to be putting undue hardship on the tzibur. And number 2, gam time the also the reason we don't want to promote more kidnapping. If we're going to redeem this kid who is taken and there's a false charges against him that he did something improper, and we're going to have to pay extra money, they're just going to constantly accuse people of crimes. Because if we're going to agree to pay a large sum of money, if we're going to pay so much, you know what the Arabs are going to do? Every day they're going to walk into the house and they're going to say, oh, this guy was Mazana, you were Mazana, he was Mazana, and they're just going to keep on making these claims. Says Marami Lublin, but maybe you'll say, but here it's different, because his life is on the line, it's Sakanas Nefashos. Maybe if there's Sakanas Nefashos, you're allowed to pay more than the value. Says Marami Lublin, and if you want to say they want to kill him, Loi ishtamit shum paisek lichtayvu lechalik. We do not find one halachic authority who makes a distinction, she'emevakshim lahargai, that if they want to kill you, she'mechuyavim leftoisa aflu yosem v'leidama, that you have to redeem even for more than the value. Says Maram Lublin, what do you want to tell me? That since this kid's life is in jeopardy, we're required to redeem him for more than the value? No authoritative halachic paisek says that in a case where somebody's life is on the line, you're allowed to pay more than the value. And they're not the Rambam and not the Shulchan Aruch. Nobody, says Maram Libin, says that in a case where somebody's life is on the line, you're allowed to redeem him. And therefore Maram Libin paskins halacha l'maisa, even if they want to kill the kid, nebuch, we're still not allowed to violate the takana of paying more than the value. Taisus. Yeah. What's the Maram Libin saying? There's no paisek who says that if someone's life is on the line, you got to redeem. What the Maram Libin didn't know Taisus? Taisus in Gittin, on Daf, Nun Ches, that Taisus wants to say that in a case where someone's life is on the line, you can pay more than their value. And the Pischei Tshuva, by the way, you ever see the Pischei Tshuva on Shulchan Aruch? He brings down many of the Tshuvas relevant to the halacha. Pischei Tshuva is written by Rav Tzvi Eisenstadt. He wrote Pischei Tshuva at the age of 18. He wrote it at the age of 18. He finished at the age of 22. He only lived to be 52 years old.
Where did he live?
At first, his first rabbanus was near Bialystok. They gave him 3 ruble a week. That's not bad for a rabbi. And they gave him 3 ruble a week. Later on, he got a job. They wanted to give him 25. He said, no. He wouldn't even know what to do with it. Anyway,
so too much in case he was kidnapped.
Yeah, right. So the Pischei Tshuva brings down many poskim that say no, that in a case where somebody's life is on the line, you're allowed to pay more than the value. But the main question is, what's the Maram Lublin talking about? What's the Maram Lublin talking about? He says there's not one paisek who says that if someone's life is on the line, you're allowed to redeem someone for more than the value. The Marshak says it seems that the Maram Lublin forgot about Tosfos. Tosfos says clearly in his answer on Daf Nun Ches that by Sakanas Nefashos you're allowed to pay more than the value.
Marshak.
I don't know. I don't think it's like Shlomo. I'm not sure. So comes along the Yishas Teshuvas Knesses Yecheskel. The Knesses Yecheskel is Rabbi Cheskel Katzen Elbogen. He was born in 1668. Okay, so one of the earlier Achronim, and he was the Av Bezin of Kehilos Ehu, Altona, Hamburg, and yes, thank you. And very interesting to realize his gadlus, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in the Yaros Tanash is maspid the Knesses Yecheskel on 2 different occasions. He gives a hesped on the Knesses Yecheskel, and the Knesses Yecheskel says something which is really gainistic. This is also brought down in the Sefer Kol Tzefayach. Kol Tzefayach was written by Rabbi Huda Gershuni, who was the son-in-law of Rabbi Lezer Silver. And he has a sefer where he talks about many contemporary halachic issues relevant to the state of Israel, actually. And this is one of the issues he discusses at length. And in the Kol Tzefayach, he brings down the tshuva of the Knesses Yecheskel. And the Knesses Yecheskel says, really a ga'ainistik asvara. And maybe instead of reading it in the Knesses Yecheskel, we'll read in the sefer Kol Tzefayach where he quotes it, it'll be easier to read. Okay. Look at number 12. Uvesefer Knesses Yecheskel Hevi Shahagoin Maharshak Uvesefer Beis Hillel B'Yardei Siman Reish Nun Beis Tama al Shuvas Maram Lubin. They ask very strongly in the Maram Lubin, Shanelam Mimenu HaToisus and Gittin Daf Nunches, that they seem to have forgotten the words of Toisus and Nunches, Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya. Shahalach L'Krachromi Amaleitim, right? The whole story over there. And what answer does Toisus give? Why was Rabbi Shiur ben Chananya allowed to redeem the captive? Because his life was in jeopardy. So what do we see? Mefurash, about 5 lines from the bottom. Mefurash mizeh debisakonas nefashos poidin yosim mikdedemeim v'divrei Maram Milublin zeh neged ha'toisus. Maram Milublin says no one in their right mind would ever say that if someone's life is on the line, you could redeem them for more than a value. What? Nobody. Toisus says it. Says the Knesset Yechezkel Go'inus. You ready? Why is it that Toisus on Daf Nun Ches gives an answer that if there's sakanas nefashos, you're allowed to pay more to redeem a captive? Why doesn't Tosus give that answer on Daf Mem Hey? Also, Tosus gives in a second answer on Daf Mem Hey. We don't want to promote them to kidnap more, and therefore at the time of the Churban you're allowed to do it. That answer seems only to be working with the answer of the Gemara, Shelo Yegarbu, that we don't want to promote more kidnapping. According to the answer that we don't want to impose undue hardship, who cares whether it's Churban or not? Either way, we don't want to cause undue hardship. Says the Knesset Yechezkel, not every answer of Tosfos works out with both of the reasons of the Gemara. The Gemara gives a reason, right? Tosfos says, a big Talmud Chacham you're allowed to redeem. Why? If the reason is because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibor, who cares if he's a Talmud Chacham, he's not a Talmud Chacham? You don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur.
Yeah, you make an exception.
Why should we make an exception? Well, we don't want to make people poor. But if the reason is we don't want to promote them from doing this again, so just because we redeem this Talmud Chacham, next time the Goyim don't. They know who's a Talmud Chacham, who's not a Talmud Chacham. They don't know. So nowadays you have people with, you can never tell by the way somebody looks, whether what they know exactly. So therefore, says the Knesset Yechezkel, the exception of Talmud Chacham is only an exception in the reason of we don't want to promote more kidnapping, but if he's a Talmud Chacham, we could do it, but we don't want to promote, maybe next time they won't get a Talmud Chacham. But if we don't want to cause undue hardship, so it doesn't matter who the guy is. But now listen to this. The reason that Tosfos gives, that if someone's life is on the line, we're allowed to pay more than their value, that only makes sense if the reason we're not to redeem captives is because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibor. So in general, we don't want to make the tzibor, we don't want to make them all poor. But if someone's life is on the line, then a person has to give up all their money to save their fellow Jew. We don't care about the Chukot Tzabira. We don't care about placing undue hardship on the tzibor. In a case where somebody's life is on the line, in a case of sakanas nefashos, it doesn't matter how much pressure we're putting on the tzibor, they have to extend themselves to save someone. But if the reason is what? Because we don't want to promote them to do it again, so then even if somebody's life is on the line, we still can't redeem them. You know why? Because if they see that every time they kidnap someone and they threaten to kill them, we're going to pay all the money in the world. So you know what we're doing? We're just provoking them to kidnap and kill more. So says the Knesset Yechezkel, the answer of Tosfos, that in a case of sakanas nefashos, you're allowed to pay more than the value, that's only if the reason is because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur. But in a case where someone's life is on the line, we have to put undue hardship on the tzibur because they have a mitzvah of loisamed adam reyecha, which they have to give up all their money for. So if someone's life is on the line, we will put undue hardship on them. But if the reason is we don't want to provoke, we don't want to incite them to shelo yigarvu, so what are we going to say? But if someone's life isn't on the line, then we will pay? Then guess what you're doing? You're not just provoking them to kidnap, now you're going to be provoking them to kidnap and pay, and try to kill the guy.
Well, you're not telling them that that's why you want to redeem him.
Well, if they see that when they give him, they put them in the jail, right, with the slippers, we don't do anything, and when we put the knife to the neck, then they do. So you know what? Guess what? They get the point. They get the message that we're only interested in redeeming when the person's life is on the line. So we're just provoking them to threaten and to kill. But So therefore now what the Knesset Yecheskel is doing is trying to say that Tosfos' exception is only working according to the answer of Shelo Yegarvu. Look at this. Look back on the number 12, the second column. Uveyoser tzarchian, the Parkash Shalech Daf Mem Hey, Ein Pidyon Shivuyim b'Tosfos Sham Tiretz Al Rabbi Shua ben Chananya Parkel Hutineg Parkel Zam Yozmei Damav Lefi Shei Muflag b'Chachma. The first answer of Tosfos was this individual was exceptional in wisdom. Inami b'Shas Churban Lo Shliach Lo Legarvu, or at the time of the Churban Lo Legarvu is not applicable. V'Yesh La'ayin, so says, asks the Knesset Yecheskel, why did Tosfos in the earlier parak not bring down the answer that in the case where someone's life is on the line, it's permitted to redeem? Why is it that the answer of Lo Legarvu is only given in the answer in Tosfos and Mem Hey, and the answer of Sakanas Nefashos is only given in Tosfos and Nun Ches? Says the Knesset Yecheskel. Listen to this. Al Kei Nirali B'li Safek Tehine Hai Teirutza De Sakanas Nefashos. The answer that you're allowed to redeem captive more than their value if their life is on the line, Shayich, that only makes sense. That only makes sense if the reason we're not allowed to redeem captives is because we don't want to put undue hardship on the tzibur. But in a situation where someone's life is on the line, then we will put undue burden on the tzibur. Because every Jew is obligated to give up all of their money to save another Jew. Now, Rabbi, why is that true? Because in order to avoid violating a law in the Torah, how much money do you have to give up?
Everything.
You have to give up all your money. If a guy says, put on the shatnez, otherwise I'm going to take away all your money, you have to give up all your money. What if a guy says, I'm going to take away all your money, if you don't put on shatnez midrabanan, you have to give up all your money. What if a guy says, I'm going to take away all your money, if you don't put on tefillin today, do you have to give up all your money? No.
If you don't put on tefillin?
Yeah. No, in other words, unless you don't wear tefillin, I'm going to take away all your money. You don't have to give up all your money not to fulfill a mitzvah saseh. You only have to give up what? 1/5. 1/5. So loisamid adam reyecha is a lav. You have to give up all your money and not to violate a lav. And therefore we'll impose. It's true, normally we're not going to impose on Klal Yisrael to pay more than the value. But not in a situation where someone's life is on the line. Masha'in came, l'taima, the Leila Garvu, but if the reason is we don't want to incite more, which means Perish Rashi Shloim Sor they Kachav Nashav Legarvu Tfei, then just the opposite. Then if someone's life is on the line, that's more of a reason to say we're not allowed to redeem him. You hear that? In a case where someone's life is on the line, if the reason we're now to redeem captives for more than the value is because we don't want to provoke them to do it again, then the more dangerous the situation the person is in, the less we're allowed to redeem them. Because if we're going to extend ourselves to redeem them in such a dangerous situation, we're just going to be provoking them to keep on doing it and doing it. Az hasvara ibcha. Then the logic dictates the exact opposite. That in misakanas nefashos paidim, if we redeem by sakanas nefashos, yirtzu laharigas hashvuim kadei sheyiftu yosar. Says the Knesset Yecheskel, but the answer that when it comes to a Talmud Chacham, there's an exception, you're allowed to redeem them. That only works out according to the reasoning of the Gemara, that we don't want to provoke them further. But if the guy's a Talmud Chacham, we'll make an exception, we'll redeem him. So you say, we're just going to provoke them to capture more Talmidei Chachamim.
They don't know.
They don't know exactly who the Talmud Chacham is. They'll just take the guy with the longest beard, right? They're not going to know. Says... Okay. So says the Knesset Yecheskel. Says the Knesset Yecheskel.
Promoting more capturing.
What?
You're still promoting more capturing, so they won't take the Talmud Chacham, but they're going to take more people.
No, because when they took a guy yesterday, we didn't redeem him. They took this guy, we redeemed him. So tomorrow when they take, we're not going to redeem them. So they're not going to do it. If we make exceptions in ways that they're not going to really know why we've selected a certain individual, they think we're redeeming this kid because he happened to know Bab Metziel and Metzius with Gemara Rashi Tosfos at the age of 10. What, they fired him?
Beautiful path.
Right? Okay. So now comes the Knesset Yechezkel, and he says like this. Which reasoning of the Gemara does the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin like? The Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin that the reason why you're not to redeem captives is Shalai Yagarvu, so they don't continue to do it. According to that reason, in a situation where someone his life is in danger, you're not allowed to extend yourself to pay more than their value. In other words, Tosfos, who answered then in a situation where someone's life is in danger, you're allowed to pay extra. That answer of Tosfos is only working out with the reasoning of the Gemara of Duchka de Tzibura. But the Rambam doesn't paskin like Duchka de Tzibura. The Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin Shalai Yagarvu. The Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin Shalai Yagarvu. That means the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch reject the leniency of Tosfos that if someone's life is on the line, you're allowed to redeem them. And that is why the Marami Rotenberg writes, you will not find any authoritative posek who says that if someone's life is on the line, you are allowed to redeem them. And the Marami Lublin comes out that even in a situation where someone's life is on the line, you cannot pay more than their value. Does everybody agree to that? Of course not. Not everybody agrees to that.
Can you exchange the captive with another person?
Okay, hopefully we'll get up to there at the end. Right now we're talking about money. The Yam Shel Shlomo seems to disagree with this Maram Milablin. By the way, the Yam Shel Shlomo was nifter in 1574. The Ramah writes the following about the Yam Shel Shlomo. In a tshuva, the Ramah writes in Siman Hey. I'll read to you what he writes. Right? The Yam Shel Shlomo is Reb Shlomo Luria.
Arizal.
May have been related to that Arizal.
For you, definitely was related to that.
It's a machlokes between the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim.
The story the story of Yam Shel Shlomo, an unbelievable story.
The Ramah writes at the Yam Shel Shlomo, he says, Ashrei l'dar she'ata shari b'saychai, fortune is the generation that you're in. La'oisu l'mayfes ki yikusiya, you are great like Moshe Rabbeinu. Gadol kishamai, ad v'san kihillel, kol oif ha'poireach alav b'shah she'oisik b'torah miyad nisraf ki Yonasan ben Uziel. The Ramah writes, when Yam Shel Shlomo would learn, a bird would fly overhead, it would be consumed in fire like Rav Yonasan ben Uziel. V'roi loimer ha'malasim ha'shamra Rameir galav yadu l'fnei ha'kazro she'ein b'doirei kamaisai. The Ramah writes about Yam Shel Shlomo that he was the greatest in the generation. Oiker harim b'populei b'techman zubizor. Says Yam Shel Shlomo. Look what he writes. V'oidna nowadays, anshe goim lechasadim b'yaretz torgama v'asayim chim lahem. The kind-hearted people in the land of Torgama and the adjacent places, they do redeem captives a lot more than the value. Why? Look at number 13. Because they hold like the reasoning of the Gemara, not Shalai Yagarbo. They hold that the reason you're not to redeem captives is because you're not to put undue hardship on the community. But if the community says, we are willing to put ourselves, we are willing to extend ourselves, we are willing to put this hardship on ourselves, they could be Michael. Hashem Yosef al Scharam, God should pay them back. Upulasam v'nei Hashem tzafin b'olam haba. Now the Yam Shel Shlomo gives another rationalization why today we're allowed to redeem captives for more than the value. And that is, Gab avanosenu harabim lo yaleinu, le'isata nismatu yisov b'gayla. There are so few Jews left in the world. And we have to have extra compassion for those Jews who are still left. Maybe in the times of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, you read in the Gemara about the numbers of Jews, they numbered in the millions. Many, many millions. Right? You look in the Gemara and the Gemara says that Beitar itself, millions of Jews were killed. But nowadays, there's so few Jews, we have to take extra precaution to save every single Jew. Shalai tichbe gachlas Yisrael, so that the embers are not extinguished. V'gam le'es hazois. And, like we mentioned earlier, Rabbi Sai, you mentioned the logic earlier that nowadays the guy, when they kidnap a Jew, they want him to convert. V'gam le'es hazois machvidim al yisol yisurim v'inuyim. Nowadays, they impose great hardships on Jews. Right? L'koifim k'nei lavar adas. They want to force them to convert. V'lasvas malacha b'Shabbos. They want them to work on Shabbos Shlo Yitzarech. Gamim lo yiftu oisam ikal mecha shelo limur shlo yargo oisam. Plus their lives are in danger of sakanas nefashos. Fine. Says the Yam Shlomo that he heard about the Maram Rotenberg. Right, we're familiar that the Maram Rotenberg was captured and he was put in the castle in Eisenheim, right, for many years. And the Tsar, what? Right? So look what he read. This is the source. The Tsar wanted an exorbitant sum, and the Kehillah wanted to redeem the Maram Rotenberg, but he did not let, because he said the Gemara says Ein Pidyon Asashloim Yasem Mikdei Demeim. Says the Yam Shlomo, I don't understand Maram Rotenberg. Why didn't he let? Because at least the exception of Talmud Chacham is well accepted. Everybody agrees, the great Talmud Chacham, you're allowed to redeem. So why did the Maram Rotenberg not let the community redeem him? Look what he says. V'tamani me'achar she'et Talmud Chacham muflag. The Maram Rotenberg was an exceptional Talmud Chacham. There is no one as wise and as pious as the Maram Rotenberg. It would have been permitted to redeem him with all the money in the world. So if you'll say that he was such a big anav, that he didn't want to say about himself that he was the Gadol Hadar, but at least he should have been worried about his own bittul Torah. The Maram Rotenberg writes, he's sitting there b'choshech v'tzalmades, he doesn't have access to his svarim, he doesn't have a toisvis on him, he should have been worried about his bittul Torah. Says the Yam Shlomo, the Maram Rotenberg was worried about the following: that if he would allow himself to be redeemed, the Goyim would find out every generation who the Gadol Hadar was, and they would capture him for an exorbitant sum. Ubevadai daitoi haya, the Maram Rotenberg certainly was of the opinion, Shem yiftu oisai, if they would redeem him, ken yesh l'mecha, shlo yasaken, kol asar m'tam chacham muflag shavadar, bava rov hamamayim. And what would happen? Ad shlo yasik maman hagadol l'fdaisam, v'tishtaka chatar mi-Yisrael. The Jewish people would forget the Torah. If in every generation the Goyim would seek out the Gadol Hadar and capture him, the Torah would be forgotten. Says the Yam Shlomo, because I have reports that not only did they want to capture the Maram Rotenberg, they wanted to capture his student, the Rosh. And he had to run away with Toltila, right? V'nitzol beracham of Rav Chasadav. And therefore, the Maram Rotenberg maintained better that his Torah should be lost than the Torah of the entire collective Jewish people.
The Rosh and the Torah together, yeah.
No, the Rosh was not taken. The Rosh ran away.
No, I'm saying the Rosh and the Torah ran away, yeah, that's why. They went to the Rosh.
Right, correct. The Zeh says the Yam Shlomo, the plan of the Maram Rotenberg worked. The plan worked. Why? Because throughout history, never again did they kidnap the Gadol Hadar. Wow. He says, V'zeh ha'ois, and this is the proof that what he did was correct. Sha'az, Paska, oisei hadavar, the matter stopped. V'hashmad, litbois chachmei hagola. They never again took the Chachmei Yisrael as ransom. Okay, now Rabbi side, very interesting. Just point out that the Knesset Yecheskel wrote that in a situation where another Jew's life is on the line, you have to pay all the money in the world. Why? Because a Jew has to give up all of his money in order to avoid violating a lav. By the way, not everybody agrees to that. What's the reason why you only have to give up a fifth of your money not to violate a mitzvah saseh, and you have to give up all your money not to violate a lav? Because a mitzvah aseh, if you're violating it, you're violating it passively. Right? You're just sitting there, not putting on your tefillin. Right? If the guy says, give me all your money, if you put on your talis today, if you invite a guest today, you have to give me all your money. So what are you doing? How are you violating the mitzvah? You're just passively violating the mitzvah. You're shev al tasa. So shev al tasa, it's not so bad. You only have to give up a fifth of your money. But to violate a lav, to put on shatnez, to eat shreif, you're actively violating the will of Hashem, and for that you have to give up all your money. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger that the lav of Leisamin Adam Reyecha is one of the only lavin that you're violating passively. How are you violating the lav of Leisamin Adam Reyecha? You're sitting there twiddling your thumbs. So in that case, Rabbi Kiva Eger says you only have to give up a fifth of your money not to violate Leisamin Adam Reyecha, which the Pischei Tshuva points out, this is not like the Knesset Yecheskel. The Knesset Yecheskel says that if it's because of Duchka the Tzibur has to give all their money to redeem a captive. That's not necessarily unanimously held. Okay. But here's the issue. The issue at hand is, we're going to try to finish in 2 minutes. The issue at hand is that halacha l'maisa, the consensus of most authorities is that everything being equal, you're not allowed to pay more than someone's value to redeem a captive. Okay? Yam Shlomo says yes, Maram Lublin, and the majority of the poskim say you cannot. You cannot. What about trading in terrorists? You're going to give back 1,000 terrorists for one hostage. So we're about to do an hour sugya in 2 minutes. So now here's the question. These terrorists, when you free them, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to get a job in the bakery and they're going to bake cookies? What do you think they're going to do? They're back at it. So basically, what are you doing? What are you doing? Basically what you're doing is, you are saving this captive's life by putting someone else in danger.
It's a terrible dilemma.
By putting someone else in danger. Now, this captive, let's say, is he in sakanas nefashos?
Yes.
Let's say he's in vaday sakanas nefashos. If we free these terrorists, are they going to be placing other people in sakana?
Yes. Maybe.
Safek, maybe. Maybe they're already old, they've been sitting in the jail so long, and they realize, maybe there's time to... Maybe. What?
They've been doing it.
They've already found, these are, they let go, some of them already tried to kill Jews.
Okay.
They already found.
So, if that's the case, but let's assume for a minute it's only a safek. It's only... It's only... Okay, let's assume it's a safek. Even where it's a safek for other people, there's a machlokes between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi, whether you're obligated or you're allowed to save one person's life at the expense of possibly putting other lives in jeopardy. In the Antebi mission, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef paskined that you're allowed to free the Jews on the plane and release the terrorists, because Rabbi Ovadia said, right now the sword is on their neck, it's a vadei sakanas nefashos. What these terrorists are going to do in the future, it's not at hand right now, it's a suffix in the future. He compares it to a shiur we once gave about doing autopsies. That the Noda B'Yehuda said, to do an autopsy, to gain medical knowledge, maybe you'll save someone's life in the future, you're not allowed to do. So
what
here...
if it's in the family?
Even so, maybe. If you have two bodies in front of you and you want to do an autopsy on A, to know how to save the life of B in front of you, that's a different story. But if it's just some far remote case in the future, that's not called Hatzalah. So too in this case, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, he wanted to say that you'd be permitted to exchange because you don't know what's going to be in the future. By the way, I believe Rabbi Ovadia uses a different svara, and that is that the Israeli soldiers need to know that at all costs they are going to be saved no matter what, in order to boost the morale of the entire army. But Rabbi say we're not here to pass on halacha, so we're just raising some of the issues of the question, some of the principles of the Gemara, and if the case comes up, you have to ask the greatest poskim. Okay.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.